monkeys.
Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden, what if, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. I'm back with part 2 of What If Deku Was a Technopath. Y'all seem to really enjoy the first part. I really enjoyed making the first part. I feel like the first part was pretty good. I feel like the idea of a Technopath is pretty fun. I know some other people have definitely done this, but I thought it's cool. I thought it'd be a fun what if to do, especially because I really like the idea of a support course Deku. I'm like big on the support course Deku. You know me, I like changing the stories a lot. I like doing this, doing that, something other people wouldn't do normally. I like doing. So yeah, really quickly, check out the description below. I have links to the people that I have the link to the music for Saint. I have other links as well. Check it out. And yeah, that's about it. I'm not gonna waste any more of your time, and let's get right where we left off. Let's get it. The class then began working on their new, I guess, technology for the 2 hero students that they had chosen. And well, as y'all know, Izuku got Bakugo and Tokage, Setsuno Tokage or Katsuki Bakugo. So he began working first on Bakugos, which it's kind of cheating, because he's already worked on something in the past. So he kind of just uses that to more or less perfect it. He starts making something like a wristband of sorts that he decides he'll explain later to the class, because that's kind of the project. After he's done with that, in a very short amount of time, he works on Tokage's, which is a little bit more complex. He decides that he wants to do something with nanotech, especially in terms of her quirk. Being able to split into so many pieces, maybe he can do something with the pieces. Maybe make them more effective in a way. First, he thought maybe he can make it so it's instantaneous and that they'll immediately come back to her. But he thought that, well, that's really complex to do, especially in only about 2 days. So, and that has to do with portals and warping, and even he doesn't have too much experience in that regard. So he began working on the nanotech that he has in mind, and after about 2 days, they're basically posted to present for the class. After everyone presents, Izuku then begins to present, and a lot of people are kind of psyched about this, especially Mei Hatsume, who's been actually asking for help from him, which he's obviously given because he's a nice dude. And also she's been watching what he's been doing. It's so simple. Everything he's doing, it seems very simple, but it's complex in a way. It's nothing outlandish, nothing like rocket boots or a power glider, but his very simple. Just a wristband for Bakugo and just small little nanomites for Tokage. Yes, they're complex, but very small. Izuku then begins to explain. So this right here is the wristband for Katsuki Bakugo. His quirk is obviously explosions, but he can't really control them that well. Don't tell him I said that, he'll kill me. But he basically, with this bracelet, he'll be able to read heat, basically how much sweat he's going to be producing. He'll be able to read commands and also condense and even output more explosions. So he can make weaker explosions or maybe even more condensed explosions, which would allow him to shoot, well, like beams or, like I said, giant explosions. This also allows him to use his quirk kind of like a laser cutter. So if you wanted to get into a certain area, but that's more specific than anything. And in this way is definitely, if you go a weaker explosion route, it will definitely be used as a better equipped smoke screen. The class is pretty impressed, so is Power Loader, and he even says so. He says that he's very impressed at the knowledge he has on his quirk already. And Izuku explains that they're childhood friends and they grew up together. So this idea has been in his back pocket for a while, but he just needed to tweak some things out. Then Power Loader then tells him to go on to his next student, that he has for the hero course, especially because, well, her quirk is very different. He then explains that, well, there's nanotech involved in this one. He puts a piece of the nanomite on his hand and clenches his fist, and his fist goes invisible. He tells him that this, well, will give temporarily invisibility. It's kind of complicated how it works, but it's very short amount of time. As he says this, the invisibility then wears off. He explains that he wanted to make it longer and probably can in the future, but with a short amount of time, it was practically impossible. So he made 5 to about 8 nanomites for her to put on different pieces of her body so that she can do this, being her fists, feet, anything like that. So the enemy or the villain or in training, nobody will see the punch coming, because, well, the best punch is the one that can't be seen. Mei is obviously super excited to see this, and she basically runs up and says that she needs to know how the invisibility works, and that this could be revolutionary for other projects she has in mind as well. He tells her that, that he'll show her soon, but Power Loader then says that it's really impressive and tells the rest of them to go up as well to basically explain their projects, in which a lot of people don't even want to because they're kind of underwhelming compared to Izuku's. But all that proceeds as normal, or proceeds through, and everyone explains their projects, in which then it's now time for the first hero training session. So Izuku heads over to Class 1A as they begin training with All Might. He arrives while All Might is actually explaining everything.
Hello, young heroes. So, here's the plan today. It will be heroes versus villains, and the villains will have to protect a bomb. The heroes will have to go after said bomb, touch it, or knock out the other 2 villains. Now, the first team will be Katsuki Bakugo and Ida versus Uraraka and Todoroki. Izuku basically just listens in as All Might then spots him. Oh, young Midoriya, I was told you would come over here.
Bakugo then turns and sees Midoriya and kinda smirks. Izuku walks over and pats on Bakugo's shoulder and hands him something. This is hero tech that I've been working on. It's for a class project. I guess I'm the only one that's fully prepared to give you this. He looks around to see that the rest of the people in his class aren't there to give their student it, maybe thinking that it was so underwhelming that they didn't want to, but he just shrugged it off, and until basically Mei came in and gave Momo something, but that's something we'll talk about some other time. So he proceeds to explain to Bakugo what the wristband or the bracelet is. And he explains, well, exactly what he told everyone else, that it reads heat commands from him and can condense and output more or less explosions depending on what he needs, even using it like a laser cutter, smoke screens, stuff like that, but more or less has extreme control over his explosions / beams now. Bakugo smirks and says that this was a good idea. Yeah, I know, I've been working on it for a while, so I would hope it'd be a good idea. Yeah, now I can't wait to use it. Bakugo then walks out with his teammate, and he is on the villain side, so he begins protecting the bomb. All Might tells all of them to follow him, and they go to a giant screen and begin watching. Bakugo immediately sets up in a position where he's closer downstairs. Ida tells him maybe they should both protect the bomb, and Bakugo says to not worry and that he has an idea. So Bakugo waits on a staircase nearby the entrance. When he waits there, 5 minutes pass, and All Might tells the heroes that they can go in. Well, Todoroki immediately freezes over the entirety of the building and thinks that he got everyone in it. But what he doesn't know is that Bakugo is currently hovering with small explosions, barely being able to be heard. Bakugo then drops on the ice, sliding down the staircase, but doesn't go all the way to the entrance. He goes right where he cannot be seen. A beam of what seems to be an explosion, but it looks like a beam of light, shoots down the staircase. But Todoroki isn't worried, because there's so many turns on the staircase that there's no way it will hit him. Well, until the beam curves. The beam begins curving, and Bakugo guides the beam right to Todoroki and Uraraka, and it ricochets off both of them, knocking them both out instantly.
Villain team wins.
All Might is even confused that he's never been able to notice that Bakugo could do that. He watched their other test with Aizawa in the quirk assessment, and Bakugo was not able to do that. It would have been very helpful if he was able to do that during that ball throw, but he couldn't. So what happened? Well, the class looks at Izuku, and so does All Might. Hey, don't look at me. I didn't tell him he could do that. All I told him is that he would have more control over his explosions. He came up with that himself. They are all shocked. They wouldn't believe that Bakugo would be that smart. Well, they knew he was. He beat everyone in the entrance exam, but this smart? He came up with something on the fly. He heard control and knew that he can make a beam like that? That's insane. Izuku just smiles. Well, you see, technology is only good when the person knows how to use it. So, that's all him. I just gave him the means to do so. His mind can be as creative as he wants. They all are shocked by this response. That it's like Izuku knew that Bakugo would come up with something of this manner. Maybe not this specifically, but something like it. They all begin to swarm him, saying that they want something as well, that please like help him out. And basically Izuku tells them that he definitely will get around to it, that it's kind of his job now, and since he's a support student, but to be patient, because making stuff like that does take time, and well, a lot of it. He then looks at the screen and sees another group going up, and tells All Might why the, cameras are in such weird spots and they can barely see anything. All Might says that this is the safest way of doing it, but, Deku being Deku, or Izuku being Izuku, kind of waves his hand, putting the cameras directly in the point of view of the students, and All Might asks how did he do that? Well, I'm kind of a technopath, just a little bit. At least that's what my quirk is called. I basically put the cameras in their suits. They're not going to notice them, they won't get destroyed. It's like they're not even there. I'm just bouncing reflections. All Might is shocked by this.
Bouncing reflections?
Yeah, that's kind of the simplest way of explaining it. If I explain it the complex way, I don't think anybody will understand it. So just think of it like I'm pointing a camera at a mirror, and that mirror is pointing at another mirror. Sort of. Just bouncing reflections. All Might nods and says that this camera view is a lot better. Bakugo then, obviously being done with his match, walks up and high-fives Izuku, telling him that was really good. I didn't do much. You came up with that on your own, so congrats. Good win. Uraraka and, Todoroki walk up as well, which Uraraka tells Bakugo that was insane and that was really impressive. But Todoroki has other words to say. He is pissed. He says that without the support item, that he would have beat Bakugo easily. And before Bakugo could say anything, Izuku just laughs. You really think that to be true? That's interesting. Well, your other support student didn't give you anything. And unfortunately, that's not how the world works, Mr. Todoroki. Actually, if you didn't know, let me think. Support items are part of hero society. So I don't care how strong your quirk is, you still lost. And frankly, you would have lost without that, support item as well. Todoroki says that he knows nothing and goes to basically bump Izuku's shoulder, but can't even get near him. He actually is propelled away from him. Huh? How the hell you do that? Oh, just a support item for myself. It's kind of in my clothing. Just repels the force around me. It's kind of like a personal space bubble, you could say. So don't intrude in my personal space. Todoroki scoffs and walks off, and Bakugo begins laughing, saying that was hilarious. That he just destroyed half and half. Izuku just waves it off and tells them that he has to get going now, that he has to go work on some stuff, and well, tomorrow he has to go give a new support item to a student from class 1B whenever they start their hero training. So Bakugo and everyone says goodbye to Izuku, and they all tell him that he better promise to work on support items for them as well, and he says he will and to not worry about it. So he leaves and he goes back into his class and begins working on some other stuff, more for himself, but also to get stuff ready for the next day. He goes home, and then eventually, obviously, the next day arrives, in which, well, class 1B is training. It's nothing crazy, it's nothing like what, well, 1A was doing, but they're training more in a 1 versus 1 light sparring match. And he approaches the girl that has a weird reptilian purple suit on. I kind of respect the outfit. It's kind of nice. He walks up and taps her on the shoulder. She asks what he wants, and he introduces himself. Izuku Midoriya. I'm the support student that basically has you for my project, so I have something for you, actually. She actually gets excited that she heard about Class 1A and that he gave Bakugo something very beneficial. Oh yeah, I feel like I gave something to Kachan that was pretty good, but I mean, yours is a little bit more complex. She smiles, thinking that she's gonna have something better than Bakugo's, especially of how good she heard that went. And he basically taps her on the shoulder, taps her on the hand, and then taps her on the other shoulder and taps her on the hand, and then drops 2 other things into her palm. I just put nanomites, some nanotech on your shoulder, well, both shoulders, both hands, and you can put them on your feet and your legs. I didn't want to touch your legs, that's kind of weird. She laughs and says agreed, and touches basically the nanomites onto the other parts of her body, and he basically begins explaining. So when you separate your body, you can separate limbs. So what I did was I made it so the nanomites would temporarily make your limbs invisible. Go ahead and clench your fist. She does so, and the nanomite makes her fist invisible. She begins to trip out about this, and that it's like so weird to see her own body invisible. Yeah, I know. But here's the thing. The best punch, the best kick is the one you can't see. So with your ability to basically camouflage in a way, you can kind of separate your body and then camouflage into a wall, and when someone goes by, that punch won't be seen. Or you can even separate your body, make your fist go invisible, and well, there'll always be that threat of an invisible attack coming. She is very impressed by this. She thanks him profusely about it, and he says that it's just going to be his job, so it's really no reason to thank him. A lot of the Class 1B students are actually listening to this and get pretty mad that they're like, where are their support items to have this much effect? And he says that he's sorry and that his other classmates are currently working on support items and that they just felt they weren't good enough. Their support items weren't good enough quite yet, so they should get them soon. They ask if he can make some, and he says that he'll definitely get around to making everybody something, but even Class 1A wants something from him as well. So it was then said that Setsuna Tokage would go against someone in Class 1B. So that's exactly what happens. Vlad King instructs them, and Setsuna will go against Monoma, someone that, well, is a very tricky opponent and can analyze something, well, basically analyze a battlefield very easily. So their fight begins, and initially it's pretty even. Setsuna doesn't really use her nanomites because she wanted to see how far she can get without them, but she then basically separates her hand and throws a punch at Monoma. But when that punch flies by him, it then goes invisible. Monoma turns to go block it, but Setsuna had no intention of throwing that punch again and punches him in the jaw, sending him out of the arena. She is shocked by this, thinking that the threat of just having an invisible limb out there, something you could not see, is a major threat in itself. because you're reacting and trying to predict something that may or may not come at all. Everything is a 50-50, and in a battle you never want a 50-50 to be able to defend yourself. And well, Vlad King is very impressed by this, even congratulating Izuku on a job well done. And Izuku just says that he didn't do much. I mean, he made the technology, but like he said before, the technology doesn't make the hero, so it's really whoever gets the technology in their hands and what they can do with it. Vlad King smiles and says that he'll definitely be one heck of a hero. Thanks, I appreciate that. Well, I should be going now. My class is doing something right now as well, so thank you all for having me. Izuku then leaves as they all say bye. And when he arrives back, Power Loader then begins speaking to the class. With that said and done, with all the hero students done and over with for now, we will look ahead a little bit. In 1 week, there will be something called the UA Sports Festival. I'm sure all of you know what it is. And I want all of you to be prepared for yourselves. I want you guys to do very well, promote your technologies if you see fit, and stuff like that. I know Mei Hatsume is personally already making some things for herself and is going to use it as a way of promoting it. Wow, that's a pretty good idea. Interesting. Maybe I should do the same. Power Loader then explains more and more and says that they'll be given the next week or so to do so. And well, that's exactly what they do. They begin training and working on stuff, and well, 3 or 4 days in, something occurs that, well, Power Loader doesn't really tell them at that time, but he runs out to basically help with the invasion of the USJ, and that goes about the same in terms of everyone being okay and them getting a couple days off. And well, the last little bit before the UA Sports Festival, they're basically have to work on their own, and Izuku does just that, making a couple gadgets here and there for himself. A couple gauntlets, couple force fields, stuff like that. Enhancements on his already gadgets, like I said. He has that little force field thing when people get too close to him. But I'm going to leave all that to be a surprise. The next episode will be at the UA Sports Festival. So I'm going to leave it off right there. I hope all of y'all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and comment down below all your suggestions, stuff like that. This right here will be coming out on my birthday. This should be December 28th. So I don't know if there'll be a video on the 29th because it'll be my birthday and I'll be probably out doing stuff or whatever. So keep that in mind. But with that said, like I said, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope y'all are excited to see what gadgets and things Izuku pulls up with at the UA Sports Festival. Alright, I hope y'all enjoyed. Later. I don't wanna waste what's left.